There's also a ton of rookies this season. I'm not picking any of them to make the playoffs. Not even Austin Cindric, who's in a Penske car, the 2 car.
Austin Cindric, the winner of the Daytona 500 from North Carolina in his 8th Cup start.
But I just can't bring myself to pick a rookie this season.
Yeah, that didn't age very well. Not at all. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to a special episode of Out of the Groove. Every year, before the season begins, I give y'all my way too early NASCAR playoff predictions. This year is no different. Way back in January, I picked my 16 NASCAR Cup Series playoff drivers. Now we are 13 races into the Cup Series season, halfway through the regular season, and I thought we could check in on my preseason predictions and see just how badly my bracket is already busted. Before we get into it though, this episode is sponsored by my friends at Pristine Auction. PristineAuction.com is the most trusted sports memorabilia auction site with an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Auctions on PristineAuction.com begin at just $1, and each day there are thousands of signed items available. Just last week, an autographed Dale Earnhardt photo sold for just $68. Every item on PristineAuction.com comes with its own certificate of authenticity from the industry's most trusted authenticators. Deals like this are happening all the time on PristineAuction.com. They're your one-stop shop for NASCAR memorabilia, collector's items, and so much more. Upgrade your collection today by using special code GROOVE at sign-up. Using this code will get you $10 off your first one item. Again, that's code GROOVE for $10 off your first item at PristineAuction.com. Sign up now because there are new deals happening every single day. Appreciate their support. Now let's go back in time to January 20th of this year when I gave y'all my way too early NASCAR playoff predictions. Oh, I'm not looking forward to this at all. All right, you can see off to the side there, that's the actual current playoff grid for comparison.
Let's begin with some easy ones. First off, Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson's going to make the playoffs.
Makes sense.
He won 10 races last season.
I want to preface this before we get started that even though I have Larson up at the top, that doesn't necessarily mean I thought he'd be the 1 seed. Like, you'll see, guys I have near the top were guys I was a little more confident in. Some of the guys at the bottom were kind of the wild cards, but this isn't an exact order of how I thought they would finish. I just want to preface this by saying that. So Kyle Larson, he's been great this year. He has the second most number of top 5s in the series behind Ross Chastain of all people, but he only has 1 win. So obviously I didn't think he'd back up 10 wins with another 10-win season, but I still expect him to get to 4 or 5 by year's end.
He's going to make the playoffs easy peasy. Denny Hamlin as well. I know he only won 2 races this past season, but he was neck and neck with Larson at the top of the point standings all summer long.
Oh boy, has that script changed. Hamlin's going to make the playoffs this year because he got that win at Richmond, but Denny Hamlin has been far from consistent. He just grabbed his second top 10 of the season at Kansas last weekend, but still his average finish is 20.9.
He's also set a new career best average finish each of the past 3 seasons. So
not this year.
His 40s, his career seems to be trending upwards. He'll make the playoffs easily this season.
Okay, well, yeah, he's going to make the playoffs, but that last bit, yeah, his average finish the last 3 years was like in the 8s or 9s. This year, it's currently in the 20s. It's definitely going to get better. He'll end this year somewhere in the teens, but still, he's not going to continue that trend of improving on his average finish every year.
Kyle Busch is another easy choice. He was just one
like this
spot
one.
short of making.
I think he's 3rd in points right now. He's 4th or something on the grid over there.
Chase Elliott as well. He only won twice last year, both on road courses, but he did advance to his 2nd straight championship.
Can't bet against Elliott. He's already got a win.
Martin Truex Jr. made it to his 4th championship in the past 5 seasons. He led Joe Gibbs Racing in wins a year ago. Cool, calm, and consistent. I expect Martin Truex Jr. to be one of the final 16 drivers.
Let me pause it right there. Yeah, Martin Truex Jr. is in a pretty good spot. You look over there, was he plus 89? Unless we get 16 winners, and Truex somehow isn't one of them, I think he's safe. He'll make the playoffs at that rate. But last year he led the team. He led JGR with 4 wins, and right now he is winless through the first 13 races. He's been close, like Richmond was just on the wrong strategy. Las Vegas was dueling Kyle Busch for the win, and when a late race caution came out and blew that up. So I still feel good about Martin Truex Jr., but like last year, once the playoffs rolled around, he was my championship pick, and he almost got it done at Phoenix. Hasn't shown that kind of consistent, dominant speed so far this year. But so far, these first 5, I feel pretty good about it.
Let's throw in some Fords. Joey Logano, I know he only won 1 race last year, but last year was kind of a down year for Ford across the board.
Still kind of is.
Penske cars were better than the SHR cars for sure.
That's still true.
Logano still made it to the round of 8. I expect him to make the playoffs this season. He was really good at all of the low downforce ovals last season.
That's true. And I know going into this video when I made it in January, we had nothing no knowledge about the next gen. We didn't know how much parity there would be with the next gen. We'd heard all these rumors and speculation, but it was all just speculation at that point. And around this time, NASCAR just changed the rules package. Remember, they're going to run a high downforce package at all the big tracks this year. Last minute, they dropped the spoiler by a few inches. They added a little bit of horsepower back into it, and suddenly the entire complexion of the 2022 season was flipped on its head. So I went into this prediction guessing that drivers who were good at low downforce tracks last year would get a handle on the next gen faster than those who weren't good at the low downforce tracks last year. Joey Logano did run really well at the low downforce tracks this year, and guess what? The one race he's won this year was at Darlington, a racetrack that obviously had low downforce this year, but has also had low downforce the last couple of years, or at least in 2021 it did. So that's where my head was at when making these predictions. Hopefully it held up. But Logano, yeah, he's going to make the playoffs. He's got to win.
Kevin Harvick will also make the playoffs. Yes, he was winless last season, but he carried Stewart-Haas Racing. He still finished 5th in the final points. Yes, he's the oldest full-time driver in the NASCAR Cup Series, but he has not slowed down in recent years. He's been to 5 championship fours.
Okay, I'm going to pause right there for a second. Harvick has been great in his 40s, without question. He is still the oldest full-time driver in the Cup Series, but this is the first year where we have seen a real noticeable decline. Maybe you could say last year because he didn't win any races, but he was still carrying that struggling SHR team on a weekly basis. He was the only guy running in the top 5 and top 10. The rest of his teammates were in the 20s most of the year. This year, Chase Briscoe's got to win. Harvick has still been, I'd say, more consistent than most of his teammates. You see over there on the side, though, Harvick is 15th on the playoff grid, only 24 points to the good. And like I said a second ago, if we end up with 15 or 16 winners this year, or heck, even if we end up with just 14 different winners, if a guy like Tyler Reddick or Austin Dillon below the cut line, or Eric Jones or Daniel Suarez who are a little further, Bubba Wallace who's a little further down, if one of those guys wins a race this year, a couple of those guys win a race this year, Harvick's out of the playoffs, in my opinion. And we haven't seen Kevin Harvick win a race in a year and a half. I don't think he wins a race this year. He's only led 13 laps this season, 11 of which were at a super speedway. He's been solid this year, all things considered. Like, I still don't think SHR is at the top of their game or anywhere close to it. But I will not be surprised if the 4 goes winless again this year. And with 11 different winners already through 13 races, I think you might need a win if you want to lock yourself in, especially if you're down 15th, 16th in the standings like he is right now. I think he's going to need to win or needs to go on like a Ross Chastain streak of like 4 or 5 straight top 3 finishes for me to feel confident picking Kevin Harvick. So far of the first 7, this is the only prediction I made in January that right now I'm a little worried about.
He's going to make the playoffs at the very least.
Ooh, I hope I don't live to regret that last sentence.
Things from William Byron this year as well.
Byron,
last season he set career bests in nearly every major stat outside of pole awards.
And this year he's already set a career best in wins. First year with multiple wins. He's, as you can see, over there, top of the playoff grid as far as wins are concerned.
But he took a big step forward last season. Yeah, he was eliminated maybe early in the round of 12. But
I don't think that happens this year. I think William Byron's going to make a deep playoff run. A lot of people would put him in their championship 4 right now, would maybe even consider him the championship favorite. I think at this point, round of 8 at the bare minimum. Considering the playoff points he's already collected, considering where he is in the traditional standings, the speed the Hendrick cars have shown the last couple of years consistently, especially late in the season, I think William Byron, anything less than a round of 8 would be a huge disappointment considering the start they've gotten off to this year. So I'm glad I had him in the playoffs. So maybe a little lower, obviously, in my preseason predictions than he's turned out to be. But the key thing is that William Byron has improved noticeably pretty much every single year of his Cup career. That's what you want to see from a highly touted young prospect. Byron was really young. He was like 20 years old when he jumped into the NASCAR Cup Series. Jeff Gordon's car, the famous Rainbow 24 Flame scheme, that was a lot of pressure to put on a young William Byron. They even teamed him up with Chad Knaus as if he needed any more pressure. Now with Rudy Fugle, he's really grown into his own driver. He carries himself differently. There's a confidence there I don't think he had before. He was always confident. I don't think he was ever down on himself, but now he's gotten a taste of that top level success, and I think the confidence is going through the roof. So William Byron's going to make the playoffs obviously this year. I think he's going to make a deep playoff run and maybe even a championship run. So I probably underestimated him a little bit in my preseason predictions. I think that's safe to say.
Ryan Blaney's an interesting one. 2021 was kind of a breakout season. He won 3 races, the most of his career, but all of his wins were at high downforce tracks, lower horsepower horsepower. He won Daytona at the end of the regular season. He won Michigan the week before that. Won Atlanta earlier in the season. That version of Atlanta doesn't even exist anymore. And then,
so I remember making this point, and this one still rings really true. Blaney, as you can see, has a ton of points. Like, unless we get 16 winners and he's not one of them, he's going to make the playoffs on points at the very, very least. But so far, he's winless this season. Last year, he ended the year with 3 wins. Granted, he got a couple of them late in the summer, so maybe we're just waiting, and in a few months, he'll break out and grab a few wins. But I'm glad I mentioned that back in January. All of his wins last year came with a big old rear spoiler on the back of his car. Outside of Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta, we don't have any big spoiler races this season. And I wasn't sure if that might affect Ryan Blaney, or maybe it's Penske. Maybe they just don't have the setup quite figured out for lower downforce tracks. Last year, he broke out and won a few races. So far this year, that has not been the case. He's not been able to back that part of it up. He's still going to make the playoffs as things stand currently, and I think he'll continue. I think he will win a race at some point this year, but at this point, I don't think 3 or 4 wins are really realistic or on the table, especially considering that Ford across the board just seems just a tad off. Like, Hendrick and Chevy especially are up at the top. Gibbs and Toyota, week to week, seems like they figured it out. Then they maybe take a step back. Ford's an enigma. I just don't know if I trust Ford enough right now to expect any of their drivers to rattle off 3 or 4 wins this year. But Blaney has been really consistent, so I think he'll make the playoffs. I got that part right, but yeah, he has not backed up his 3-win season last year. So really, I nailed this prediction, at least so far. This one, I double thumbs up.
I still expect Ryan Blaney to make it into the playoffs without too much issue, but I'm less certain we'll see him back up his 3-win 2021 this year. I hope he does. I think he's a great driver. I think he's capable of it. The question will be, are the Fords a little bit better, and how does he adapt to the new next-gen car? Will it suit his driving style? Most of his recent NASCAR wins have come with high downforce, high drag. I mean, he's such a great super speedway racer.
So yeah, so far this has been my most accurate prediction through the first 13 races this year at least.
Alex Bowman will make the playoffs this season without too much issue.
Good.
He won 4 races last year. Yes, this seems like a no-brainer, but he was probably the most inconsistent Hendrick Motorsports driver all season long. 15.1 average finish was worst on the team.
Yeah, so he has flipped that script this year. I do want to mention that, and I've been trying to give him some more love for that in recent weeks. Yeah, Bowman, I just mentioned last year, had an average finish of like 15.1. This year, his average finish is 11.1. 4 positions better. 11.8, sorry, almost 4 positions better. But still, he's been far more consistent. He only has the 1 win so far this year, and it was, helped out perhaps by a late race caution. But Bowman's been in contention for other wins this year. So far, he's impressed me. He has been one of the most consistent Hendrick drivers, whereas a year ago, yeah, he was the least consistent. He just grabbed those 4 victories. So it's been neat to kind of see him flip that script this year. I've been impressed by Bowman for the most part.
I feel like few of us will disagree about my top 10. I think most people have those 10 making the playoffs without too much issue this year.
Overall, I feel good about those top 10 right there, minus Harvick. He is the one of those 10 locks, quote unquote, that I feel a little uncertain about at this point in the season. But the rest I feel pretty confident in.
Let's continue. This is where we may start to disagree more frequently.
This will get more fun.
I've got Christopher Bell making the playoffs this season.
Okay.
He's in a Joe Gibbs Racing car, but like I just said, I'm not sure that's going to be worth quite as much in 2022.
I think as we've seen, if you're on a good team like Gibbs or Hendrick, it's still worth quite a bit. Christopher Bell started this year horribly. He was back there with Hamlin for a while, 30th in points. As you can see, he's now 14th on the playoff grid, despite not having found victory lane yet this season. 48 points to the good. Yeah, I mean, I still feel like you may need to grab a win to securely lock yourself into the playoffs, and you need those playoff points if you want to make a deep playoff run in October and November. But so far, I feel pretty good about Christopher Bell. They have turned things around quickly, and this year, they've been a rocket during qualifying. They're stealing Ryan Newman's old nickname. He's got 3 poles on the season. I don't think anyone's come close to touching that.
At number 12, I've got Kurt Busch giving 2311 Racing their first playoff appearance.
And nailed it officially with this win this past weekend at Kansas. Kurt Busch is the first 2311 car to be virtually locked into the playoffs. So nailed it. I was worried about this one, actually. I remember that I was one of the people that picked Kurt Busch. Talking to friends of mine and reading some of your comments, Kurt Busch was kind of a mix. A lot of people had Kurt in, but some people weren't willing to put Kurt Busch in. And I understand why. It was a new entry for a still very new and unproven team. But to me, I had Kurt Busch getting in because he's a proven driver. We saw what he did with Ganassi in 2018, 2019, 2021. When he got to Ganassi in 2019, I should say, he immediately turned that one car around, turned that whole program around. This year, they've been really up and down, really inconsistent, but you can see when they give him a good car, and all the Toyotas were fast this weekend at Kansas, he bubbles to the top more times than not. So, yeah, feeling good about my Kurt Busch prediction so far.
Next up, Tyler Reddick will make the playoffs. 2021 was no
fingers crossed
for Reddick. Compared to his rookie season, he improved on nearly every major statistical category. From 9 top 10s to 16 top 10s, he had like a 17.5 average
improve a lot
to
last
15th
year.
place average. I think Reddick's going to take another step forward this year. It's going to excite some people. I think the next gen might
He has excited
a team
us.
like Richard Childress
And that
Racing,
part is
who
true.
sort of lagged just behind the big guns for a few years now.
I still feel good about this prediction. I know he's on the outside looking in, and what is he, 22 points out now? Like, that's a significant deficit. You're likely not going to make all that up in one weekend. You can, but you're probably not unless you go out and dominate. Reddick has had so much speed early this year, but it bothers me he has 0 victories still to show for it. Obviously, Bristol Dirt was the most heartbreaking one when Briscoe just went in, kamikazed it, and took him out. They've had some bad luck lately, multiple DNFs, multiple incidents, like this past weekend at Kansas, got into the wall while running in the top 5, ended up cutting a tire down and wrecked. He's got to clean some of that stuff up, and I'm worried the pressure is setting in because they've shown playoff speed throughout the beginning of this season, but with no wins to show for it and now slipping further and further below the cut line, I don't want to see Reddick pressing too hard. He's still a young driver. He hasn't been in this position consistently. He did make the playoffs last year, which is another reason I figured he'd back that up and make it this year as well. But he's never won a race. And until he wins a race, I feel like there's always going to be a lot of pressure on his shoulders.
Next up, Austin Dillon is going to make the playoffs this year. Austin Dillon always flies under the radar. I know he's not the most exciting pick in the world.
And you know, if we look at the traditional, like, Winston Cup style points, I'll factor in stage points, Austin Dillon's 13th in points this year. Yeah, he's 17th on the grid because he doesn't have any wins, and that's, you know, while Austin Dillon does have a few career wins, that's not something he's particularly known for doing. You can't count on an Austin Dillon win every single year. He's got 6 top 10s this season. That's the same number that Martin Truex Jr. has, the same number Joey Logano has. That's actually, and this stat shocked me when I read it, that's actually more top 10s than William Byron has this year. Byron's been fast, but boy, he's been kind of up and down. Austin Dillon's been doing it with consistency this year. He's only 11 points out, very much within striking distance, but I'm not feeling quite as confident in Austin Dillon now as I was obviously in January. We'll see. I still think RCR is fast, but they got to finish some more of these races, and with as many different winners as we've had this year, I keep saying it, you may need to win a race. If you're in that like 15th through 18th bubble, you may need to win a race if you want to feel safe.
Only 2 spots left. This is where things get really, really tough.
No.
A lot of new teams in the sport. Trackhouse added a second car.
I already know I'm going to get a couple wrong here.
15th on my list, I've got Brad Keselowski.
Oh no, this is the first real whiff, I think, so far. He could still win. With this format, you win a race, all your problems go away. I was bullish on Brad Keselowski coming into this season. We've seen Roush cars make the playoffs in recent years, and to me, Brad Keselowski is the most talented driver in his prime Roush has had the last few years. Like, Newman's great, but I think he was a little past his prime. Keselowski's still in his prime. This was their best opportunity they've had in a while to make the playoffs, and so far just hasn't gone well. That 100-point penalty they got was obviously a killer, both point standings related, but also just a morale killer for sure. Keselowski only has 1 top 10 so far this season. Now, he's 31st in points thanks largely to that penalty. It is worth mentioning. If we give him those 100 points back, he would be 19th in points. You know, not great, but close to within striking distance. So even though he only has 1 top 10, he's been consistently running mid-teens, finishing there more times than not. So it hasn't been an awful season performance-wise for Keselowski, but that penalty really took the air out of their sails. It has not been a smooth start to his driver ownership tenure. All eyes are going to be on Atlanta in a month or two, and of course Daytona for the regular season finale if you're Brad Keselowski.
I think Brad Keselowski will drag Roush back into the playoffs this year. I don't know that he wins a race. You know, he'll be good at the super speedways.
He's going to need to win a race.
But I think he's a good enough driver to point his way in, if nothing else. So I think Brad Keselowski, in his first year as a driver owner, partial owner, will make the playoffs. All right, now we've made it to the end of my list. The final driver I have.
Before we get to the very end here, obviously I've mentioned it, but, you know, Austin Cindric, rookie, winning the Daytona 500. I didn't expect that. The last couple of years when I do these way too early predictions videos, I usually put a rookie in. Like, I'm pretty sure last year I picked Chase Briscoe to make the playoffs. The year before that, I think I had Bell when he was with Levine making the playoffs. But Bell didn't come close to making the playoffs that year. Briscoe didn't come close to making them last year. So this year, my new rule was no rookies. I'm not going to pick any rookies. And of course, week 1, race 1, Austin Cindric made me eat my words in a pretty dramatic way. But there's 1 spot left, and I know who it is. And thank goodness I slipped this guy's name in there last second.
I'm going with Ross Chastain.
Woo!
Man, he gets it done.
Thank goodness. salvage my list a little bit here. Like, I feel pretty good. So far, this list is decent. The RCR guy is a little questionable. Brad Keselowski's pretty questionable. And, Harvick, who knows at this point. But thank goodness I went back and forth on this for a long time. And a lot of my friends and other people I talked to were not sure about Ross Chastain. Some people thought Trackhouse wasn't going to take a big step forward this year. Trackhouse last year had a couple good runs with Suarez, but the rest of the time they were running 25th and breaking parts. I bet on the next gen car. I bet on Ross Chastain being hungrier than ever, and that's paid off so far. Ross Chastain, as you can see, is up near the top of the playoff grid as they currently run. While I predicted Chastain would make the playoffs and likely nab a win somewhere, I didn't expect him to be tied for the series lead in wins halfway through the regular season. So I can't celebrate this one too heavily. I didn't predict this kind of performance from Chastain, but I at least thought he would make the playoffs, and I got that much right. So thank goodness. Ended on a high note.
Was how he ran late in the season at a few tracks. Like, he was third at Darlington in the playoffs.
That was a big race.
7th at Richmond in the playoffs.
He was very impressive
was
at
also
Darlington.
8th at New Hampshire late in the summer. It's not just how good he was at some of the short ovals last season, but it was also how good he was at some of the road courses.
Exactly. And he got his first win this year at COTA. So, and I predicted that one at the time. Said that was going to be his first win. So, Chastain, I felt pretty good about that prediction so far this year.
4th at Circuit of the Americas, 7th at Sonoma, 7th at Road America, 12th at Watkins Glen. Also, those are pretty solid finishes.
And keep in mind, we've only raced at one road course this year so far. We've still got 4 or 5 more to go. He could grab a couple more wins at those easily. I say easily. He's going to have to go through Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, maybe even Christopher Bell, some of those other road course guys. But I'm just saying, he's not done. I think 2 wins is not where he will stop this year.
Which means there are a few high-profile drivers I have missing the playoffs. Eric Almirola, lame duck season. He's already announced this is his last season as a full-time NASCAR driver.
I still feel good about that pick. He started this year off pretty consistently, but he hasn't been good the last few weeks. So you see, he's currently 16th. I think he's going to continue to fade. And I know he came out of nowhere to win that race at New Hampshire last year. I don't think he's going to do that 2 years in a row. So I think Almirola will miss. I also know I have Bubba Wallace missing out. 2311 showed some serious speed at Kansas. That's making me a little nervous about that prediction. I think Bubba could nab a win somewhere, but I don't think he's pointing his way in. He's going to need a win. And we've only got 2 more super speedways until the playoffs begin. Those are still his best shot, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to happen. So far, so good on that prediction as well.
Chase Briscoe, another one who I think will have a great shot, especially at some of the road courses. But outside the Indy road course, he was also not competitive last year. Hopefully, SHR is better as an organization.
Okay, well, that last part is true. Briscoe wasn't very good last year outside of 2 races. Where I was wrong, though, is that he got his win at Phoenix, an oval, a short oval for that matter. Came out of nowhere. I didn't see that coming, but I got Briscoe pretty epically wrong so far.
I paused when looking at Chris Buescher's name because last year he did have an average
Where's he in
finish
points?
of 17.3 career best, 19th
21st
in points. Brad Keselowski coming over
He's
now.
gonna need a win.
Some shakeups over there at RFK. There's reasons to be optimistic about Chris Buescher's chances this year.
Every time I think RFK is about to take a step forward, they have just a terrible race. As a whole organization, it's kind of a bummer. Buescher's got 3 top 10s though this year. That's 2 more than his boss. You can hang your hat on that. All right, pause. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. I feel like I nailed a lot of these. And granted, a lot of them are pretty easy to predict. Guys like Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, Truex, Logano, Byron. Pretty easy, pretty safe playoff picks. Larson, of course. Hamlin hasn't run as well as I thought he'd run, but he does have a win at the very least. Harvick has been a little iffy to start this year. He's not showing winning speed, and where he's at in points, there's a question mark there. Some of these other guys, though, Kurt Busch, picked him right. Picked Ross Chastain right, at least as far as making the playoffs. I'm holding on to my Reddick and Austin Dillon picks for now, especially Reddick. I still think he will either win or point his way in. Guys like Bell, I think, are safe. Keselowski was the big whiff. I thought he'd have more top 10s at this point, and obviously that huge penalty really killed their momentum. Overall, I feel pretty good. I missed out on Cindric. I missed out on Briscoe. I'll own up to that, but other than those misses, I feel pretty good about my early season playoff predictions. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. I'll probably do another one of these videos at the end of the regular season, so 13 races from now, right before the playoffs start. And once the playoffs are about to begin, I'm going to update my playoff predictions, or I'll give you guys my championship picks and go round by round as I always do. But leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. Are there any predictions that you made early this season that you have receipts for that you're proud of, or maybe some that you missed on like I missed on some of mine? Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. That's going to do it for this video. A big thank you to my Patreon supporters as always for supporting the channel and keeping this show on the road. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you keep up to date with all things NASCAR. I'll be at Texas Motor Speedway this weekend for the All-Star race. Hope to see you guys out there. That's going to do it. I will see you again in the next video. Thanks for watching, y'all.